All right, so domain and range is not that bad. We just have to remember how to do the problems. And another thing to remember is domain is the X, the range is the Y. A lot of students, they just remember like Dr. XY. Dr. XY. Domain is the X, range is the Y. Okay? Number one, it's a word problem. This one's a word problem, so they give us a graph. So the word problems are the ones that we really have to kind of take our time to figure out. So Kelly rides her bike at a constant rate of 16 miles per hour to complete a bike trail near her home. The bike trail is 20 miles long. Okay, so some people can read this and say, oh, I see the equation. It's right there, because when we're looking for equations, we look for per, each, or every, and we definitely see per. We see 16 miles per hour. So some people remember, oh, I know the equation already, okay? However, some people, if you don't see the equation already, I tell my people to make a little table, all right? Because it says Kelly rides her bike at a constant rate of 16 miles per hour. So after the first hour, how far has she gone? 16 miles. Then after the second hour, how far has she gone? 32 miles. So if you couldn't write the equation, which is y equals 16x, hopefully you can kind of set up a table. It's like, oh, 1 hour, 16 miles, 2 hours, 32. And you could use stat edit to then help you get this equation, okay? With domain and range, it's best to make sure you have either an equation or a table. The reason why I skipped 0 is because that's the start. At 0 hours, she's still 0 miles. All right? So, but the only thing is it says the bike trail is 20 miles long. So if she does do that full second hour, she's going to go past the bike trail, like into the river or something, or crash into somebody's house or something. So she's not going the full 32. She does have to stop when we get to the 20. So we are going to have to figure out her stopping point, okay? So the whole thing with domain and range is like I want to know my starting point and my ending point for domain and range. Starting point in the X to the ending point, starting point to the ending point. Because we could keep going and say 3 hours and 4 hours, but the bike trail is only 20 minutes long, so we don't need all that. So it says write all possible X values. So we do need to figure out when Y is 20, what is the X? Can you figure out, like, some of you guys might be able to do that in your head. When Y is 20, what should the X, how many hours does it take her to go the 20 miles? Did anybody figure it out yet? It's basically like we would have to set up an equation. We know 16x would equal how many total miles? 20. So we would have 20 equals 16x. And if you solve that for x, divide by 16 on both sides. That will tell us it took her 1.5 hours to finish the 20-mile trail. Okay? We need to know that because write all the possible values. The domain for the X, because domain is the X, what does X represent? Bikes, miles, hours, bikes, homes, hours. Remember we just said 0 hours, after 1 hour, after 2 hours. So our X's is definitely our hours. And we know the start would be the 0 hours. And the end, we don't even really need this because that's too far. The end would be at the 1.5. Hopefully you guys remember this little weird notation with the less than signs in between. Whenever you have a starting and a stopping point, you're always going to use the less than signs in between. If it's to infinity, you may not use them. All right. So we have our hours was our X, and the Y's represented the miles. And the starting miles was 0, because if she didn't go nowhere, she's still 0 miles on the trail. And since we're talking about range now, we have Y, it ends at 20. She's not going to go over 20 miles because the bike trail is 20 miles long. This one, with range, this is one big mistake we see on tests sometimes. Range can also be written with f of x in the middle, because y and f of x are the same thing, substitution for each other, or a nickname. Oh, my name is Carmen, but they call me Cece. It's still the same person, okay? Then we already answered this. How many hours does it take Kelly to get to the end of the bike track? We already answered that. That's where we got the 1.5. We had to calculate that. How do you know? Who cares? And what is the rate of change? Then we talk about the rate of change, which is the slope per, how many per? 16 miles per hour. Got it? Any questions about that? If not, I'm going to move on. This one says, Samantha pays an initial fee of $20 to join a gym. There's an additional cost of $15 every 2 months. This problem is wrong. It should say every, cross 2 out, should be every month to maintain her membership. So please cross out the word to and cross out the little S back there if you want to be correct. Samantha pays an initial fee of $20 to join a gym. There is an additional cost of $15 every month to maintain her membership. So some people can read that and they know the equation. They know it's y equals blah, blah, blah. Some people that are not good at setting up equations, they should probably set up a table. Because if you read this, you can say, okay, after 1 month, well, she paid an initial fee of $20. So she paid $20. Then at that first month, she had to pay the extra, like additional $15 each month. So how much is it for the total for the 1 month? It's not just 20. We got to add 15. That's 35. Then the second month, just add 15 to that. That's 50. And the reason why I skipped the 0 was because that's the initial fee, the y-intercept, which is 20. Because before she even got to go to the gym, before she even got to do anything, she had to pay $20. Then the next month was 15, just 15, 15, 15. So you could keep going. And on this one, I'm not going to keep going, but it does say she decides to keep her membership for 1 year, which means my stopping point will be at 12 on this one. So ... 12. If it didn't say this, it would just be like an infinity. So we wouldn't have to worry about a stopping point. So from here, if you needed to use stat edit, you can use stat edit to discover that the equation is 15x, because it's 15 per, plus the 20 initial fee. Maybe you already had that. If you did, that's great. Okay. So let's look at our table and figure out, what do the y values represent? 0 what? 1 what? 2 what? What is it? We got some people in here. We got some money. What is the 0 and the 1 what was 35 what? Come on, y'all. The X's are the time, the month. For the first month, it was $35. In the second month, it was a total of $50. For the third month, add 15 to that, would be a total of $65. So the X values represents the months. And remember, she's only paying 1 time per month, right? 1 payment per month. So we cannot use the same continuous notation. This is where we have to change it to 0, 1, 2, 3, stopping at 12. Remember, there was a difference between counting it out or using the inequalities in between. She's paying once per month. Once per month. So we have to do it like this. Do not say, oh, well, Miss Battle is tripping. I'm going to write it like this. No, this is not the same thing. Okay? Now, the y values represent the total cost. And did it start at 0? No, because in the beginning she had to pay 20. Then we'll keep counting here. ... Did anybody find a total for the 12th month? Ah, good, good. Yeah, some people got that. Good. To 200. Remember, domain and range is about a starting time and a stopping time, depending on which the X and the Y. 6 months. How much will she have paid after 6 months? 6 months. Anybody find the 6 month? Close. Did you say 105? Yeah, that was close. It should be 110. 110. And remember, you could have put it in the calculator and look for 6, and you will see 110. So 110 after 6 months. And the rate of change, once again, your rate is the $15 per month. Remember, this is just a star review. That's why I'm moving kind of fast. If you're watching the video, this is not a first time instruction. This is a star review to help you remember. All right. Got it? We got one more to do for this video because we're skipping this one right here. It's just so tiny and people can't see it, so we're skipping that one. But let's do this one. The number of songs that Barry's iPod can hold depend on the size of its memory as shown on the graph. If his iPod can only hold 8 gigabytes of memory, describe the domain and range. This one, there's no equation, there's no table, but we should be happy because they give us a graph. You got to have one of them. You got to either have equation, a table, or a graph, or a word problem. Okay? So let's not answer this question yet. Let's come up with domain from looking at a graph now. Remember, domain is the x. So I'm looking at my x-axis. Some people look at the x-axis, they say, oh, from 0 to 10. Are you kidding me? Look, this graph does not go all the way to the 10, does it? The graph paper goes to the 10, but the function stops at what on the x-axis? At the 8. And since this is a solid line, it's not just points, it's from 0 all the way to 8. It does not use 9, it does not use 10, it don't even use 8.5. We cut it off right there on the x-axis. Now the range, let me do the range on the left one. The range, now I'm looking at the y-axis for the range over here. And some people get so, they're like, oh, I know the range is y, so 0 to 2,000. Does it actually reach 2,000? Does the function go all the way up to 2,000? No. It stops here. And I told my other class, I said, if you need to draw the line to where it's touching the y so you can really see it good, go ahead. This is where my range, it started at 0 and it ended there at 1750. And remember, they could write it with the f of x in the middle. I mean, you could have did the same thing with domain and draw the line if you needed to. But please remember, y f of x. This one here has to have an x. You cannot put anything, you can't substitute that x for anything unless they change the variables. But f of x is the same thing as y. And that's the end of that video.